Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sticking around to play with me today, to dance in cosmic joy, and to explore where the future will take you, and to be part of creating that future for your community. When I started developing this workshop, I thought it was going to be called What's Next? Then I settled on a title, In the Midst of Change. And what got put in the bulletin? Setting goals for a new beginning. I told this to Barbara yesterday, and she said, well, maybe it's all of those. And it is indeed. So, yeah, it's all that in a bag of chips, folks. So we're just going to play together for a couple hours. I think my job here this weekend is to remind you that you have what you need. You are not short of any resources, any abilities, or any capacities to move this community forward. And so I'm going to be reinforcing that for you today. Is there another clipboard? Because I'm realizing, I totally forgot about the whole flip chart thing this morning to explore if there was one of those. So a clipboard will do me just fine, so I can take a couple of notes in one segment. But first, let's pray in. It's come to that. A few years back at Unity Church of Hawaii, right before service began, our projector was overhead, died. And like your church, everything happens with the projector and the keynote. So I think practical stuff, practical solutions, years of event planning. Something goes wrong, 30 seconds, you got to have the answer to how to fix it. I'm good at that. I used to be. And so I'm thinking, Sky, I'll go make song sheets. I'll be right back. So I'm gone, and they're fiddling, get the lanterns out, and they're trying to fiddle with the projector. And the volunteer who's on the keynote station, who only comes once a month, says, well, wouldn't we pray? And Sky looks around and said, ha, it's come to that. So it's an ongoing joke about prayer, and maybe if you start there, it's a good plan. So I invite us to start there. Take a breath with me. And come to that place at the center of your being where you connect with the God of your understanding. Inviting that presence to bring you to awareness, to bring you to confidence, to bring you to enthusiastic participation in what will move Unity of Kona forward. We give thanks for this ever-moving activity of God, life, love, and light that is present in each heart in this room and present as the heart of this community. And so together, with open hearts, we will say 3 times, thank you, God. Join me. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. So the first thing I want to do is get acquainted. You had the little piece of propaganda about me. I'd like to learn a little bit about each of you. And so as we go around the room, I'm going to ask you to share your name, how you participate here in the community, if you have a formal role, or whatever you'd like to say about how you are here at Unity of Kona. And tell me how many years you have been in Unity anywhere. I was talking to Jim before he left. Now, some of us are elders in the community. Jim found Unity at 14. I didn't ask him how many years it's been, but I wager it's a decade or 2. So I said, if you were to stay, maybe you'd get the prize for the longest history in Unity. So if you'd all just share that information. I'm going to pass the microphone around because we're videoing today.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and I am from San Diego previously, and we attended the Unity in San Diego for probably 8 or 9 years, and then when my daughter moved over here with her husband, and we would come to visit, I would come to this church, and then Jim would come to this church with me, and so we've probably been involved with Unity in 10 or 12 years.
Hi, I'm Larry, and this is my wife, Carla.
Hi.
We've been involved with Unity ever since we moved onto the island 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. This is our very first Unity church, official Unity church. We've attended before, but this is the first time we've become members. And so only 5 years.
And I'm Carla Sire. I serve as a chaplain here at Unity of Kona, and I'm also a secretary of the board. Our 5 years here has been different for me because I come from a Baptist background, and Deb opened my eyes to other possibilities, and I love it here.
You might be surprised at the number of Baptists working in many Unity churches.
Aloha, my name is Diana, and I have been a Unity member back in Chicago for about 10 years, and here about 5 years. I am a chaplain and an office assistant in helping the church.
Yes, thank you for your support. You're doing amazing.
Sure is. Thank you, Diana.
Hi. Hi, my name is Dondi, and I'm Diana's husband. We've been Unity for about 15 years, 10 years in Chicago and 5 years here. I participate in the community. I'm still working, and I also belong to the several organizations, Disabled American Veterans. I'm the treasurer there and belong to the American Legion and VFW. So anyway, and I serve as the vice president of the board of directors here.
I'm Kayla, and I run the kids group here, and I do workshops as well, art-based things and fun things. And I've been with Unity here about 5 years and 1 year on the mainland, so about 6 years total. Yeah. And I'm running for the board. Yay.
My name is Patrick Thompson. I am the president of the board of directors here at Unity, outgoing. My term limit out at the end of February. And I've been, this is the first Unity church I've ever been a member of, but I was on the fringes of our Unity back in Minnesota. And so I've been a member of Unity for 5 years. 6 years total. Unity North. No.
Hi, I'm Gene. Aloha. Let's see, we started attending Unity churches at Christ Unity with Phil and Dorothy Pearson and the Mannings. After about a year, we went to Spiritual Life Center, which was a church started by Reverends Michael and Faith Moran, and in the second year of that church is when we accepted membership. So that was about 25 years ago. And other than those two churches, we assisted Reverend Larry Schellink start the Unity Center of Davis, and I served on the board there. And we've been on Big Island about a year and a half, and I am a nominee for the board here.
Aloha, I'm Barbara Olberg, and I'm married to Jean, and like you said, we've been members of Unity for 25 years. what do I do in the community? I just have busy hands here at Unity.
Everything. You do everything.
I have my hands in everything. So, and that gives me great joy and great pleasure. It's an honor because of what this church gives to me and this beautiful Ohana family. Thank you all.
Aloha, I'm Kathy, and I have been coming to Unity since 2000, so I guess that would be 19 years. Unity of Bellevue on the mainland, Unity of New Westminster, Unity of Vancouver, Unity of Kona. I've actually served on the board of Unity of Kona for about 4.5 years. I was on a brief period before we all served together. And in this community, I try to do whatever is asked of me or I see that needs to be done. And I am looking forward to hopefully getting elected to the board again. Let's see. Max Lasker, yes. John McClain, Nancy Walsh, and Marla Mason right now. I was floating around in that era. We'll talk later. Okay.
I'm Carmen Morel. I've been involved with Unity about 28 days.
No, you were here in February too.
Oh, February, yeah. Off and on. I'm not an official member of this Ohana, but everybody makes me feel that way. And I love you guys all for that, truly. I live in the Sacramento area and got a chance to participate in the community before the holidays with the help of Kristen. I don't see Kristen here, but reading to after-school children, I got a chance to do that. And then with my very dear friend Kathy's introductions was helping with a luncheon at a high school. I can't remember how to pronounce the name. That was it.
Aloha, I'm Jane, and I am new to Unity. I came from Colorado and way up in the mountains. The nearest town, there is only 325 people. So we did things. I did Course in Miracles. We just had small groups that would get together. But I love Unity. I love this place. The first time I came in, I just cried and cried. It was so beautiful. So thank all of you for being who you are. I just started coming here last 2 months, and I'm going to be taking the classes.
I really don't need this.
For the recording, you do.
My name is Mamie, okay? And before I get started, I wanted, she didn't add everything. You see these beautiful? Oh, yeah. This is this lady here. Yeah, and a lot of other helped her, but this is the one that always gets things started, okay? Yes. Anyway, when I came here, I had been Unity on the mainland and a religious science. Virginia and I helped found the membership of the Church of Religious Science here. We were charter members. And then I left and went to Honolulu, where I went to Unity Diamond Head. And then I came back and I moved to Kohala and went back to Religious Science because there was no Unity up there. Then Virginia said, "You're moving back down here, so you got to go back to Unity." So that was how long ago? About 20 years ago? Because Reverend Deb wasn't here, was the other minister. What was his name? Lubos, Richard Levy when I came. Yeah. Yes. And I just do a little bit of everything around here, like cleaning. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I wasn't going to stay, but when I heard what you were doing, it sounded interesting, so I decided that I would stay a while. I still have to leave because I have another event. My name is Virginia Halliday. I became a member when Reverend Blue Boats was here, and he was the founding minister. So I wasn't a charter. I've been a member of Unity for about 28 years. And, and I've served in many positions, secretary, I'm trying to think of all, greeter, thank you, refreshments. I haven't been on the board yet. Yeah. Anyway, I was here when Reverend Deb came 18 years or so ago. As I said, I've been here 28 years. I started with Blue Ghost, then Levy, and then Reverend Deb. And that's about it. I didn't hear what else I was to say, but that's it. And I love Unity, and I love Reverend Deb. And by the way, she married my husband and I, Doc and I. She surely did. Okay, sure. This lady's been there a long time, too. She was at Royal Kona.
Yeah, indeed. I've been involved with New Thought for 42 years, and then coming to here, to Unity, about 28 years. So I have found such spiritual strength in the joy that Unity gives and the inclusiveness. I have over time been a faithful, loving member of so many workshops with Reverend Deb. I can hear her voice in so many things that she's presented. I was one of the first classes of chaplains that she inaugurated for this church, and my husband and I are faithful greeters here. And we're in the tradition of Reverend Deb in the sense that we try very hard to meet and greet with a smile and a hug, and so glad that you're here. And she's here now with us. Yeah. My name is Bonnie Steen.
And obviously, I must be Harold Steen.
Maybe not.
Anyway, I've been led to believe that. And I've been a steady member since we retired in 2008, so that's about 11 years, or 10 anyway. And prior to that, I was rubbing up against this lady for all the spiritual help I could get because I worked on Sunday, so I wasn't able to attend. But I felt like when I was off, I often came with her, and it was always a spiritual uplift to have that opportunity. I'm on the board right now, and it's been a special experience. It was a little over a year ago that Reverend Deb, when we were at the Song Fest, came up behind me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "We sure would need you on the board at this time." And it became, because I felt of her illness, something that I just had to step forward and do. And I didn't know it would lead to where we are now, but I'm glad we have such a strong board and a strong community here to deal with this transition. And like I say, I've been a member really since about 6 years, but have been attending since 2008. And as Bonnie says, we're greeters. We bring food for the after-church stuff. It's just a beautiful place to be and a wonderful community to be a part of.
Thank you. Well, I guessed this beforehand, but what I learned and what I want you to know is there are 221 collective years of Unity experience represented in this group. Give yourselves a woohoo and a hand. Yeah. So there's nothing you can't accomplish, yes? That's right. Whatever comes your way, it's only as difficult as you think it is. And remember this moment. Who's in this room with you? Who's in the whole room? We had a big crowd here this morning, and they all have a connection to this community. And remember to rely on that connection. Because I know there's stuff going on that makes you nervous. How are you going to make the bills on time? All the unknowns. But you are equipped. You are called and you are equipped. God never takes us to the edge of the cliff to drop us over, but to give us wings. So stretch your wings and fly in the next little while. Because you will have lots of opportunity for the stretching and the growing. And my mentor and I at Unity Church of Hawaii, Diamond Head, some call it, we once did a talk titled, Another Growth Opportunity. You know, with all the asterisks and little funny symbols. Only because he wouldn't let me say the real word. Just put holy in front of it. Okay, so I want us all together to set the field. Do you know what I mean by that? The quantum field, the matrix, the energy movement of the universe is centered right here in this moment in this community. And what pattern do we want to imprint on that field as we move forward? So I'm going to pass the microphone around again and just ask each of you to declare a word that you hold as intention for the journey forward in this community, so that we create that intention collectively for the work we do today, as well as for movement forward. So please, Jamie, a word of intention for today.
Harmony.
Light.
Joy.
Peace.
Imua.
Connection.
Kuleana.
Same word as earlier. Yes.
Cohesion.
Harmonious.
Togetherness.
Passion.
Love.
Growth. Laughter.
Ohana.
Good guiding lights for today. Thank you. And mine is completion. Yay. Okay. I'm going to have you pass these little forms out. And you're going to start with this side with the frame on it. Pass them forward. Give them around. And it's a simple assignment. On the front of that form with the little frame, you're going to list 3 people who are role models that you admire. Perhaps they've mentored you, you've been inspired by. They can be living, no longer in the body. They could be fictional. I didn't pull my slide, but the last time I did this exercise, my 3 inspirations are Reverend Sky St. John, Reverend Richard Levy, my 2 spiritual brothers, dancing in the cosmos, and I'm sure stirring up some holy mischief wherever they may be, and Dumbledore, who said to Harry when Harry asked, "But what if it's all just happening in my head?" And Dumbledore said, "And the difference would be?" It all happens in the head, people. It all happens in consciousness. And then we translate it into our experience, into daily life, into what happens in our life. So What's going on in your consciousness, if you keep it going on in your consciousness, you will eventually live it in your experience. So it behooves us to pay attention to what we have in our consciousness. Oh my God, how are we going to pay the bills? I don't know how to get this done. Where is the money going to come from? God's got that handled. If you can take any problem that you get into that worry, prayer, possibility thing about in this community, and you can say, God's got that handled. I'm listening for what's mine to do. And when you hear, what do? You say yes. Yeah. I gave a talk that my parents used to say, don't just stand there, do something. I gave a talk title that was, don't just do something, stand there. Waiting on the presence of Spirit to inform the action of my life. So back to the 3 people. Everybody have their 3 people? Okay. Flip the little sheet over. And now you're going to define why those people, characters, individuals inspire you. What qualities do you admire in them? Okay. You can have lots more. I'm just, for the next piece of this, in the recovery community, they have a saying, if you spot it, you got it. So what you have identified as qualities that you admire in these individuals, characters, whatever they may be, they're pieces of yourself that you maybe have not yet brought to full realization. Maybe you are called to nurture them more. But remember, you already have everything you need. So these qualities exist in you, whether or not you've come to recognition of that. You have declared a statement with these qualities of who you have come here to be, right here and now. And you have called yourself to step into those qualities more fully. Yes? Okay. So you're going to declare the power of that. I want you to fairly quickly step up to 3 different people. You'll have to just mingle around and find somebody who needs a partner, and you are each going to say, I came here to be those qualities, and speak them out loud. And then your partner will say their list to you. Got it? You're going to do that 3 times. You're going to share with 3 different people. Get up and move, go people, or turn around and do it in this space, whatever works. 3 people share. Okay. Since I've been here this weekend, I've had a couple of questions about the school. So I'm going to take a moment or 2 to quickly explain that, since I'm the director, the one that's supposed to know everything. And I also want to say that my presence here this weekend, in part invited by your Board of Trustees, is because I've been where you are. In 2013, Sky St. John, our minister, who had been very open about his history of alcoholism and recovery, lapsed. Seriously. And the church supported him in going to treatment. And as you may not know, when you're in a residential treatment, you don't have a lot of access to the outside world. But the nature of Sky's work and the nature of what was taking place in our community, we had minimal permission to have contact with him in his last week so that we could prepare for what was coming when he came home, because it was an exciting time. And so I had conversation with him a little bit before he came back to Oahu about what he wanted to accomplish on his first Sunday, how he wanted to communicate this to our ohana, because he just left, and he asked us not to describe what was going on. He wanted to tell his story when he returned. So we were talking about that, and he said, well, Margie, I'm not quite sure how to weave this whole experience of mine into the Sunday sermon because, oh, by the way, it's Christmas Sunday. He said, maybe I'm the ass in the story this season. It was his great sense of humor. And I talked with him, then he came back to the island, and I talked with him that morning that he was planning to come into the office, and we went over a checklist of what needed to happen before Sunday. And he didn't come. And then we got this odd call from his credit card company wanting to reach him, and we said, oh, haven't seen him, and why would you be calling? And she said, well, I can't, unless you're his next of kin or you hold power of attorney. And my mind goes, ding, 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 ding. I can't tell you anything, but I can tell you that I'm calling at the behest of the local hospital ER. Ding, 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 ding. And I said, I'm neither of those things, but his power of attorney is available to me, the person who holds that, and tell me where and when to deliver this person. I screamed over to grab that individual with the power of attorney, and we screamed, and I like speed, people. We screamed to the hospital to find that he had been pulled from the ocean and was on life support. And 24 hours later, in accord with Sky's own wishes, he was released. And he was surrounded by nearly 30 people who loved him in that ICU unit. And that began an interesting journey. And essentially, we had 3 associate ministers, and essentially I was Sky's number 2. And the board asked me to step up for continuity and hold space until they could get a handle on how to move forward and what they needed to do. And, oh, by the way, the day before, Unity Worldwide Ministries had closed for the holiday season. They closed before Christmas till after New Year's. Now, I did have a couple of people's phone numbers and permission to call them, but we just went about doing what needed to be done. And that was not only delivering church on Sunday and our other programs, but that was care of a hurting congregation. We held, he passed away on a Thursday, we held a prayer vigil Friday night. And we held a second one Monday evening. And we implemented organized grief work in our congregation. 2 members of our congregation are certified in a process called the Grief Recovery Method. And it's an 8-week sort of a seminar kind of thing. And in an active congregation of about 300 people on Sunday morning average, we had 60 people show up when we began that program. Now, you probably know grief recovery is not the most fun you'll have, but it's the most important work you'll do. And so it dwindled by the end. About half of those people weren't ready to stay at the pace of that work. And so we finished, about 30 of us, with that process. And even that, 30 out of 300 is 10% participation in special activities is not a bad figure in a church. And what's your membership? What's your average attendance, 40 to 60?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah. Well, there are 16 people in this room. So you've got 40% anyway. That's terrific. And I'm imagining that's pretty normal for this congregation, because in a small Ohana church, you have that kind of cohesion. Was that your word, Barbara? Somebody had cohesion. Yeah. And that flourishes in difficult times. I have said a lot in the last 6 months. What's going on in the political life of our country is the macro. What's going on in the Ohana life of my church is the micro. And there's a lot of relationship between the two. And in this church, where you are so wonderfully bonded together, I don't expect to have a lot of turmoil, for you to see a lot of turmoil. Now, I know you have people who have taken you through some grief conversations and may continue to do, I hope, continue to do grief work in your community, because it is extremely important. It's tough, or you can decide to approach it with joy. Because here's the truth about life. Tragedy stands here. Joy is right here. My husband died unexpectedly about 20 years ago. I'm so grateful for my Unity Church in Bremerton, Washington, because they just carried me through that process. And what I knew is, in the midst of the trauma, there was the joy of this community that loved me and took care of me in any way they saw that I needed. I had friends who would show up, knock on the door, and said, I didn't bother to call because I know you're going to say, I'm fine, don't need a thing. Well, I think differently, and so here's our plan today. Are you going to argue with me, or are you going to get dressed and come along? So remember to show up at the door and say, here's our plan for today. Get dressed and come along. I don't know what took me off on that tangent or where I was headed. I think I was in the grief work thing. So continue that, because it will carry you forward. And I know you've been working with, your board has been working with Unity Worldwide Ministries, the Member Services Department. Those people are amazing. And I know there might be some resistance to what they recommend, because some of us are fixers, and we can see the solution, and we want it to happen now. Remember, you can't see the road, but I want to know what the steps are, and I want the timetable, and please give it to me now. Natural response when the earth shakes, when our world is rattled. Golly, we want anything that gives us comfort and, oh, love this word, control back over our circumstances. I enjoy the spiritual journey because years ago, because of that family I described in my sermon that I am totally out of sync with, I learned to live in the question. I learned to live in the mystery. I can't say I always absolutely love it, but I know that at the end of the mystery, there's a solution. Whether or not I like the timetable, whether or not I like the curriculum. What does the course say? The curriculum is required.
It's a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary.
So volunteer and say yes to the curriculum that is now required in your community, because it's only timing that's optional. And like grieving a personal loss, which you have, only now you're doing it collectively. We grieve differently. We have different rhythms of timing. We have different responses to it. Some people's response to the death of a minister is, let's hire another one right now. Somebody else's response in the community is, but I don't want to forget Rev Deb. I want to honor and respect her, and I want to hold on to that experience as long as I can. So that tension of those two ideas might cause some shaking of the earth. Breathe through it, and try to remember that however you feel, somebody else is bound to feel exactly the opposite. Oh, goody. And just be compassionate with one another in the process as you move through whatever comes up. And for those of you who serve on the board, my real feeling is that is such a sacred calling. Whether you got there because your heart called you, or you got there, Harold, because Deb tapped you on the shoulder and said, you are needed. And believe me, Deb knew what she was doing, that you now found yourself here at this moment. And all of you did, because your soul called you into this whatever spot, however you define yourself, whatever office you hold, whether you're signing up to be elected or re-elected to the board, or you're signing up for whatever volunteer activity, your soul has called you to the moments of this experience. And your soul knows the path, and it will share with you the details as they are needed. So live in the mystery and live in the question. Be open, and when you hear that voice, say yes. Even if you argue, say, because heaven knows I've argued with God a whole lot, but say yes. And if you don't know where your inner voice is, you'll have lots of opportunity to figure out if you listen. I like to joke and say, mine's just about right over here behind this ear. I actually often hear it in the resonant cavity of my body. So I am wondering, for those of you who sit here, and many of you are on the board or about to be on the board, and so you know a lot of the details of the behind-the-scenes information of your church. Is there anything in your way with being able to move forward that I might be able to shed some light on based on my experience? I mean, I've got a lot. My husband had the nerve to die before I was 50. I mean, really. At least he died on Pearl Harbor Day, a courtesy to me so I'd remember the date of his death. And he messes with me from the cosmos. He was a physicist, and I swear to God, I believe that man moves stuff in my life just to irritate the crap out of me. I could tell you stories. And then the passing of our minister and it's my personal opinion, I think we're still processing the residue of that, because that community, in my opinion, humble or otherwise, we didn't follow the procedures that Unity Worldwide Ministries would have had us engage in. It happened in a sort of haphazard fashion. They recommend an interim transitional minister process. We had an interim minister, a wonderful gentleman named Dr. Nicholas Griffin, who'd actually served as an interim in our church 25 years before. That man worked day and night, but he only had 6 months to give us. I believe 6 months did not heal our community. And he was already setting the search process in motion because that's what many in the community wanted. And so our search team was ready at the end of those 6 months. We had 3 candidates lined up and did tryout weekends one after the other, and they went through the process of search team selecting a candidate, recommending to board makes a decision, and then reaches out to contract. And that was September were the tryout weekends, and our new minister arrived December 1. Because people had a sense of urgency. They couldn't step back and breathe into the space of creating the community we wanted. And that was a wonderful man. His presence was wonderful. And I believe we didn't develop the community consciousness to hold him. 18 months later, he was gone. It's like a rebound romance. You leave a relationship and you don't do your own work to clean up what led to the end of that relationship. You're still in it was his fault or her fault. Or, I didn't do anything wrong. You can't be in that consciousness and move forward toward wholeness. So a search team, rather than pausing and doing the work, a search team was formed again. Jack left in September. And our new minister arrived Easter, not quite 2 years ago. And it's been an interesting journey for that sweet man. He called me yesterday to inform me that he has accepted an offer from a church on the mainland. And he will conclude his service in our church mid-February. And he's announced it this morning at services. It's been on the table. We've kind of seen this was a possibility, but now here it is real. Second minister leaving us before 2 years of their contract is concluded. Red flags at UWM. That is not the sign of a healthy congregation. Now, if I have to stamp my feet and shout, I don't think I'll have to. But hopefully, we will act in wisdom this time and go through the processes to clean up whatever our stuff is, because it's there, so that when we call our next minister, we are at a level of consciousness to draw somebody and hold somebody who can move that church to its next level. And that's what I advise for you. Now, it takes resources to do what UWM recommends, and I know that doesn't appear to be on the table right now. But there's lots of talent here in the Hawaiian Islands, a number of retired or not fully engaged ministers. Maybe they don't have all of the transitional training that UWM would recommend, but our regional rep does, at least a great part of it. Her requirements may have been slightly different than transitional ministry work, but a lot of it overlaps. And Joan Gattuso, I don't know why this hasn't, if I haven't said Joan Gattuso's name before, I'm not sure why. Joan Gattuso is a retired Unity minister. She lives on Molokai, and she is our regional rep. She's the person a church in challenge would go to, or a minister with difficulties in their congregation might turn to her for support, to lean on the resources that are available for UWM. And Joan is a powerful Unity minister, a powerful consciousness. She has written several Course in Miracles books. Gattuso. I can give you her contact information for the board. The last one might have been A Course on Forgiveness. That might have been her most recent book. I'd have to, which I think means the first one might have been A Course on Love. Yeah, steeped in Course in Miracles as well as Unity. Probably had a 35-year career as a minister before she retired. And there are other extraordinary retired ministers